The Dallas Stars are off to a 3-0 start to begin this young NHL season, but they face their first true test with a 4-game road trip to the East Coast where they'll play some really talented Atlantic Division teams. And on today's episode, I'm joined by Matt DeFranks of the Dallas Morning News to talk about the Stars' hot start and what they need to do in order to carry the momentum into this road trip. We'll talk about that and more on today's episode of Locked On Stars.
You're Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, Stars fans. Welcome back to the Locked On Stars podcast, the only daily podcast covering the Dallas Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Dane Lewis, your local expert on all things Dallas Stars hockey, credentialed member of the Dallas Stars media, coming to you on this Wednesday, October 19th. And whether this is your first time here or you are a recurring listener of the show, thank you for stopping by and making Locked On Stars your first listen every single day. If you're new to the show, be sure to hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel. We're trying to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of 2022, so help us out there by hitting that subscribe button. And if you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, you can subscribe to us and follow on there as well. And if you like the show, you can leave us a 5-star rating or review. And you can also find and follow us on social media at Locked On Stars on Instagram and Twitter, as well as my personal Twitter account at Dane_Lewis. But as I said in the open of the show, have a very special guest on today. Let's jump into today's conversation with Matt DeFranks of the Dallas Morning News to talk about the Dallas Stars' hot start. Joining me now on today's show is Matthew DeFranks. He covers the Dallas Stars for the Dallas Morning News. And Matt, let's just jump right into it. This Stars team is off to really the best start that I think that they could have envisioned for themselves this year. 3 straight wins to begin the season against division opponents, 13 goals for, only 3 goals against. Is this a start that you expected to see from this team at the start of training camp in the preseason, or are you surprised by this start?
Yeah, I don't know if expect to see would be quite where I was at. I'm honestly, I wasn't even sure if that was going to be possible, because it's not even that they've won these 3 games. It's the way that they've won it. I mean, their goal differential is plus 10. They're outscoring teams 13-3. They've gotten scoring at the top. They've gotten scoring at the bottom. Special teams are good. The goaltending is good. It's just about as good of a start as you can ask for in terms of results and how they're doing it. So it's, definitely was not going to expect this coming out of the gate. You kind of envision that it would take some time to get to what Pete DeBoer wanted this team to look like. And, it's something we saw a few years ago with Jim Montgomery coming in, and how long it took the Stars to play the style that he wanted to play. And even with talking with Pete DeBoer this preseason and training camp, he was saying, hey, it's going to take till maybe Thanksgiving, then we'll be rolling. And it's tough to say that they are at that point right now, only 3 games in. I mean, there's still some underlying numbers in terms of shot attempts and shots for that are don't point to a plus 10 goal differential, but it's been a fun start for the Stars. And I think, as long as the good vibes last in Dallas, might as well enjoy them for Stars fans.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, the vibes certainly seem to be really good surrounding the team. Even just talking with players after games, you just see the smiles around the locker room. And even DeBoer, like you said, seems pleased with what he's gotten from his team. I think it's a big jump, even just from the preseason. I think there was maybe some speculation and some questions on whether this team would be ready to start the season, but those questions seem to, for now, be put to rest. But talking about this offense and the goal differential, what's something specific that has impressed you the most with this offense? Because last year, that was the one knock, or one of the many knocks against this team, is that they struggled to score goals. And you touched on it maybe a little bit, saying that they're scoring from the top, the middle, and the bottom. But what's one specific thing that's impressed you the most with this Stars offense through 3 games?
Yeah, I would say that it's the way that they've generated off the rush. That home opener against Nashville on Saturday, all 4 goals were off the rush, minus Marchman's empty netter. But that's something that they didn't do last year. They didn't have a game with 4 rush goals in the same game. They got to 3 a couple times, but they never got to 4. And there's a similar thing with just scoring 4 goals in 3 straight games. Is something that they hadn't done, and so I turned to my colleague Mike Heike last night in the press box, and it was 15-12 was the shots on goal at that point. And I looked at Mike and said, "This doesn't feel like a game that has had 15 and 12 shots on goal, just because of how many chances both teams had. I mean, especially in the first period, the Jets had a lot of chances in the Stars' end, whether it be off of turnovers or whatnot, but." It seems like they haven't gotten that shot-heavy production or mentality that past Pete DeBoer teams have had. When you look at point shots in San Jose and Vegas, his teams have had a lot of point shots and a lot of shot attempt volume numbers. And that hasn't happened a ton right now, but the chances they have generated have been dangerous, and a lot of them have been on the rush. So that's been kind of an interesting way that they've kind of orchestrated their offense.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a big part of it is, and I know Rope Hintz touched on this the other night after that home opener, talking about the way that the team enters the zone. It's a lot less dump and chase and seems to be a lot more methodical as far as passing. And I think we even saw that on Jason Robertson's goal that he scored against the Predators. Do you think that that's a result of the coaching style from Pete DeBoer? Is that something that you guys see when you're at practice or, morning skates? Or do you think that that's maybe something that the players have kind of taken on? Because we didn't see that a ton last year. I think last year there was a lot more of that dump and chase mentality. Do you think it's the coaching style that's changed that, confidence in the players? What do you think is the motivation or reason behind that?
Yeah, I thought Pete DeBoer had a very interesting answer when he was talking about his philosophy. Actually, yesterday morning after morning skate, he was asked about dumping and chasing and when is a good time to do it and when's not. And he said, well, it's not just a matter of getting to the blue line and deciding whether to put it in deep or whether to carry it across and make a play. It starts in your own zone with proper support, proper spacing, creating enough gaps in the neutral zone to have space to carry the puck in or to pass the puck in versus dumping it in and going on the forecheck. So I think that was an interesting comment. And for him, everything has started from their own zone in terms of breakouts. It's what they did the first day of training camp. It's what he talked about being the foundation of their game. And it's that sort of support in their own zone that has helped them get some space in the neutral zone and getting the puck in cleanly. It's not always pretty. There are still times where the Stars get stuck in their own zone, probably a little bit too much. But they do generate more when they get out of it in terms of getting out there on the rush like we talked about before. So I think it's partly, philosophy driven, right? I think part of it is a little bit personnel driven. I mean, there was a couple of plays on Saturday against Nashville that I kind of looked at. I was like, hey, that's interesting. That probably doesn't happen last year. And one of them was Mason Marchment kind of turning back at the blue line to try to retain possession instead of going on the forecheck, and ended up in a turnover. The Predators went the other way on an odd man rush. So that's the downside of not getting it in deep and not going on the forecheck. And another one was Niels Lundqvist was in a similar situation, and he pulled it back and kept possession. The Stars got a change, and I think that possession ended with that Miro Heiskanen to Jason Robertson give and go. And it's just small things like that where you say, hey, well, maybe part of it is philosophy and part of it is personnel, and maybe it's a mix of both. But I do think that, the coaching staff has made a difference in terms of that element of the game.
Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for football betting info this season. Find all of the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game you can find. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sports wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your favorite games and events, including MLB playoffs, MMA, boxing, and golf. The NBA season has begun. The Dallas Mavericks play their first game of the season tonight against the Phoenix Suns. If you want to bet on that game, if you want to bet on some NBA futures, you can do that at betonline.net. Head to BetOnline right now online or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action happening around the sports world. BetOnline.net is where the game starts. Yeah, for sure. And it just feels so interesting and unusual to almost watch with the Stars team, just with how little we saw some of that last year. And I think that even just the way that they forecheck and fight for the puck in their own zone, like you said, is, vastly different. I think even with Tyler Seguin's goal on Monday against Winnipeg, there was that play from Dellandrea in the corner to get that puck to Tyler. Did that play kind of take you by surprise? Like it did me, that pass just kind of came out of nowhere and Seguin buries that. What was going through your head as you watched that play unfold?
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that pass at that time from that person. And I think sometimes for me, especially, I am guilty of forgetting that Ty Dellandrea was a number 13 overall pick, that he did have a breakout year in Flint his last year in junior, that he was one of the AHL, I guess Texas's best players. I don't know across the league wide, but he had 50 points in the AHL last year, which was second on the team. And so he does have an offensive skill set. It's just not something that I always anticipated translating to the NHL. So definitely a good start and a good play from Ty Dellandrea there, and something that Pete DeBoer talked about after the game. And obviously you were there, Dane. That hey, he has to produce at this level because where he's playing and who he's playing with, right? So with Tyler Seguin and Mason Marchment, you're going to expect a little bit more of offense from Ty Dellandrea, and it definitely caught me by surprise. And I found what Tyler Seguin said a little bit funny last night too. Hey, I expected it to come after I called for the seventh time. So I think the Ontario line has looked to us so far this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the top six in general have been really impressive for this team. And, you talk about Tyler and how exciting it is to see him back and healthy. And even, cracking jokes like that last night, smiling. And I know we talked about the health of him as well with Pete DeBoer afterwards. And just really good stuff to see from the offense, but kind of shifting the attention to the defensive side of the ice, the defense and the goaltending. Jake Ottinger, they've done really well to start the season, but at the same time, they have, I believe it's 35 penalty minutes. Last night, they were 10th in the NHL in penalty minutes. In your eyes, how has the defense continued to stand their ground and not allow more than one goal in a game, despite being top 10 in the league in penalty minutes? And last night, it just felt like as the game went on, they kept finding themselves in these, penalty kill situations, whether it was the 4-minute, accidental Ryan Suter stick situation, and just a few other instances where the Stars found themselves down a man. How do they continue to build on that? And is that something that can be somewhat sustainable throughout the season?
Yeah, I don't think you can count on a penalty kill going 13 or 14. And I know you definitely cannot count on Jake Ottinger having a 966 1.0 sort of season, but that's been one of the, I would say, underrated aspects of the Stars start so far, is that, we focused on how many goals they're scoring and who's scoring and how they're scoring them, that this performance by Jake Ottinger in the first 3 games has kind of gone a little unnoticed, to be honest, at least on my end. I know I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about it. And I think part of it is I don't know if expected is the correct word, but it's not surprising to see Jake Ottinger do this. We don't, no one really expects him to duplicate his Calgary performance. 954 is kind of an absurd number. And the chances that the Stars were giving up then were a little bit outrageous, especially in Game 7. So I don't think anyone was expecting him to do that again. But to see what he's done and be very solid and make the saves that he's supposed to be making, it's been really, really good for them to see that. I think back to the 3 goals, and it was a deflection on opening night in Nashville, and then it was kind of a 5-on-3 goal. Essentially, it was right when the penalty ended, and then Scheifele ripping a slap shot. So it's been like goals you would be okay giving up, and he's done the rest of his job very well. So I think that's where you look at the Stars defense, and it all comes back to him. We'll see how it goes the rest of the year, and what it looks like when he does come back down to, a 920, maybe 915, 930, whatever, somewhere in that range goalie, and how the Stars results follow.
Yeah, and if you're just speculating with this 4-game road trip coming up, I imagine we'll see Ottinger at least 3 of the 4 games. Do you think we'll finally see a Scott Wedgwood appearance with the first back-to-back for the Stars at the end of this trip? I know on Monday, Tuesday they have Ottawa, then Boston. I mean, do you try to feed the hot hand as long as possible if you're in the coaching staff position? And even if Jake looks good on Monday in Ottawa, do you maybe give Wedgwood the start Tuesday? How do you think they'll continue to manage the goalie situation given how he's played?
Yeah, I think you definitely have to give Scott Wedgwood a look on this trip. This trip has all of the schedule quirks, right? It has a back-to-back, a 3 and 4, a 4 and 6. Those are all the ones that coaches have talked about kind of needing an extra goaltender. And that was something that down the stretch last year, Jake Ottinger was getting all of those starts. And you look at the start totals from, the back half of the year, and he's up there with Jacob Markstrom and Connor Hellebuck and great goalies. Just not sure you want to be up there with those guys in terms of volume because they do start so much, and they haven't really had a ton of playoff success. So I think you have to have Scott Wedgwood be available on this trip. I don't know if it's going to be in Ottawa or in Boston. I think personally it'd be probably pretty cool to see Jake Ottinger in Boston. I don't know if he's played there since he left BU. But that would be kind of a neat thing to see. I think for for Toronto and Montreal, you're probably going to see Jake Ottinger, and then we'll see who's in net on which night for the back-to-back. But I think you definitely have to split them.
Yeah, I think it'd be exciting to see where Wedgwood can pick up, at the start of the season, because obviously he came in and, provided some really good outings for the Stars team last year. And, it seems like he's a pretty solid backup for Jake this season. So curious to see what a performance from him would look like. But now shifting focus kind of back to the offense, but staying defensive-minded with personnel. We've talked about the way that the forwards have been able to produce, but we've also seen some offensive production from the defensemen, including Miro Heiskanen, which was the expectation this season, that he would, take some more shots from the blue line and be a little bit more active in the offense. And I think that we've seen some more confidence from him, maybe some confidence that we didn't quite see last season. And John Klingberg was there to shoulder a little bit, of that offensive weight. But what have you liked the most from Miro Heiskanen in the early stages of this season as far as what he's done on the offensive side of the ice?
Yeah, you might be able to help me on this. I don't remember which goal his assist came on, but I try to think back to his 2 goals, and those are goals that you maybe would not have seen last year from him, right? So one of them was the give and go with Jason Robertson on the rush, and he's coming up the left side, right? And
yes.
we haven't seen him on his left side since before the pandemic. So that was something that the makeup of the Stars defense core has led to, with the 3 righties, 3 lefties. Miro Heiskanen is going to play on his strong side as long as that is the group on the back end, and that's going up on his left side and finishing a tap in from Jason Robertson is something that is new. Him at the point on the power play, the one-timer last night against Winnipeg, last year he was in the circle the whole time. He wasn't on the top power play unit. He wasn't in a position to receive a pass up to the point and let a one-timer rip. So those have stood out to me in terms of offense that we wouldn't have been able to see last year, just based on usage. Him being on the strong side and him being at the top of the power play in the first unit. So encouraging signs, sure. But much like the rest of the Stars team, a hint of caution that, you don't expect him to have 82 points just because he has 3 points in 3 games, but definitely a good start for him. And, it's actually funny. I think about last year, he scored his first overtime winner in that season opener against the Rangers. And you think, all right, well, maybe this is going to be the year where the offense comes and, maybe he becomes a Norris Trophy contender truly. So we'll have to see how it goes the rest of the year, but the signs are there early that he's going to be put in situations to contribute offensively a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think as long as he's able to do that and find some ways to produce, even if it's more assists than goals, I think the Stars are better for that. But even if it's not necessarily Miro, either directing the offense with passing or shooting the puck, I think there's a few other guys that have stepped up as well, with Nils Lundqvist and Yanni Hakanpää last night against Winnipeg with that monster shot after, I know on Sunday at the skills showcase, I think 98 miles per hour was his the official radar gun captured speed. Sam Nessler was telling me that he thinks it might have been a little faster, but the gun was a little finicky.
Yeah, it was a little bit janky. So the radar gun was showing some 18-mile-an-hour slap shots and 51-mile-an-hour. It's just, you didn't know what to trust. The ones in the 90s, you're like, okay, that might be legitimate, but a little bit of an asterisk on Yanni Hakanpää's hardest shot competition win.
But do you think, Hakanpää's goal against Winnipeg, that I feel like that ended up kind of being the swinging of the momentum for the Stars? It was kind of a neck and neck, felt like anyone's game up to that point, and then he rips that shot from the right side. Do you think that maybe gives him a little boost of confidence? I mean, obviously he's not going to shoot all the time whenever the Stars are in the offensive zone, but do you think that maybe gives him, that maybe little push to be a little more offensive minded?
Yeah, I don't know. I think he knows who he is as a hockey player, and that's a big bruising physical guy on the back ends who has a big shot, but historically hasn't scored a lot. And I think he is an element that the Stars don't really have another one of him. Esa Lindell is a big guy and he can be physical, but not to the extent that Yanni Hakanpää is. And I think for the Stars, they'll take the offensive production, obviously, for sure. They'll love to have anyone chip in, but I think he still needs to be that anchor on the back end to really help the team.
Yeah, for sure. As long as he's finding ways to contribute, I think he's been a very underrated addition to this team since joining last season. And I think that, he's maybe becoming a fan favorite in the sense that a guy like Jamie Alexiak was kind of the big enforcer type that can, let a shot rip from the blue line every now and then. And hopefully we'll continue to see more good stuff from him. But speaking of new acquisitions, we've mentioned his name a few times already, and he's, leading the Stars in points or up there near the top. I think he's tied with a few other players. But what have been your overall thoughts on Mason Marchment? I mean, I think there were people that were excited to see him play. It just felt like he was buried on that roster in Florida under some other really talented players, Huberdeau, Barkov, Ekblad, really good Florida team. And now he comes to Dallas, and it seems like he's just, come in and found his role on the team, and he's doing it really well. So what have you liked from Mason Marchment through the early games of this season?
Yeah, I was probably like a lot of people who didn't know whether last year was just a flash, whether he'd be too injured, or what would happen when he got more minutes. Would he be able to handle all the came with that, more responsibility? And he's been really good. I think obviously that first goal in Nashville was a highlight one. That's a flash where you're like, oh, I didn't know that he could do that too. And he almost had a hat trick in that game. So he's been really good. I think if we had seen the two road games that he played in the preseason, so that would be in Tulsa, in Kansas City, I think he was pretty good in those games, according to the coaches and to the box score. And I think if we had seen that, there might have been a little bit more buzz coming out of preseason. Same way with maybe Will Butcher or Yoel Kiviranta, who had good games that weren't televised or weren't anything that people could see. So I think if that would have been the case, people probably would have been talking more about Mason Marchment entering the regular season. But I think he's given them a look that gives them someone on the second line that can score. So it's been a welcome sight for him, for Stars fans to see him produce.
For sure. And I know Stars fans are very aware of his presence on the team now. And I feel like even the rest of the NHL world, I mean, not very many people can make a move like he did on Roman Josi on that opening night in Nashville. I mean, that's as good of a goal as you'll see all season long. And I mean, he did it in the first game and then he again followed it up with another goal. And I think he's had at least 1 point in every outing so far. So we'll see how long that streak can go. And kind of the last thing I want to highlight on before we finish up here is, the Stars are going on this 4-game road trip, Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa, and Boston. What's something that you want to see from this team on this trip as far as continuing to improve? Because that's something that Pete DeBoer touched on, after the game against Winnipeg, that they're doing well. They're, pleased with what they've done so far, but they're still trying to find ways to be better. So in your eyes, what are some things that the Stars are going to likely be working on or looking to address in these games? Some teams and some buildings that'll be pretty difficult to play against.
Yeah, I think I'm going to sidestep your question just slightly, just a little bit. So what I really want to see on this road trip is I want to see more of who this team actually is, because this 3-0 start, as good as it is, this is not what's going to be. This isn't the team for the rest of the year, right? This is not going to be how it goes every single night, scoring 4 or 5 goals, giving up 1, having a great penalty kill. It's just not going to happen that way. So I just want to see who they are when it's not happening that way and what they can do about it. Like at this point in my life, I root for one sports team, and that is Notre Dame football. And it's been a tough year for me so far. But as a fan, when I start reading preseason coverage and training camp coverage, I always have to just think about, hey, don't change your expectations of the season based on preseason or training camp or things like that. And with the Stars, I understand these are regular season games, but it's, hey, don't change your expectations or your kind of outlook on this season based on the first 3 games. See how it shakes out when things aren't perfect. And also, I think the good thing about these 3 games is it showed me what the potential could be. I'm not sure I knew that this was the potential before the season started. I know it's there. I just know it's not going to be happening every game for 82 games. So this road trip will be, an extended one. It's a week on the road, 4 games. Going north to Canada. There's going to be a great atmosphere in Montreal for sure. You're going to see the old coach in Jim Montgomery in Boston, new look Senators. Like, it's going to be a good trip. Not to mention the Leafs that just lost to the Coyotes, right? They're going to want to come out strong, I'm sure. I'm just looking forward to seeing what this team actually looks like and getting a better gauge on who they are.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they got a small taste of some adversity and kind of, getting hit in the mouth, if you will, on Monday night in that first period, especially early on. It felt like Winnipeg kind of had control of that game and they responded well. But a lot of these teams that they're going to play on this road trip, I would argue, are better and a little bit deeper than the Winnipeg Jets. And so I'm right there with you. I think it's going to be interesting to see how this team responds if they're down, 2-3 goals, or if they're just not able to get out of their own zone or generate offense. I think it'll be interesting to see how they, respond to adversity and what adjustments they make. And overall, I think that we'll learn a lot about this team over the next week or so. And hopefully, hopefully the fans won't overreact if there's a bad loss. But knowing Stars fans, and I know I'm right there with them a lot of the times, there tends to be the overreaction. You have the people now that think this is a over 100-point season, President Trophy type season, and one bad loss could just shift that thought right out the window.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, for sure. But Matt, thank you for joining the show today, and hopefully it's are you going with the team to all these games out of town?
Yeah, so I don't travel with them. I travel on my own commercially.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I'll head out on Wednesday to Toronto.
Good stuff. Well, I hope you have safe travels, and hopefully the games are entertaining and give you plenty to write about. And if you want to let the people know, I know we have your information up on video for people on YouTube, but the people listening on podcasting platforms, if you just want to let them know where they can find you on social media, where they can find your work, you can go ahead and do that.
Yes, I'm on Twitter at Matt DeFranks, and then you can read everything at dallasnews.com.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining the show, Matt. We'll have to have you on again soon.
All right. Thanks, Dane.
Huge thank you to Matt for coming on today's episode and giving us some of his insight on what the Stars have done well to begin this season and what they can continue to work on and improve on as they go on this 4-game road trip. But that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Stars. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for a preview of the Stars matchup with the Toronto Maple Leafs, a team, like Matt said, that just recently lost to the Arizona Coyotes. That's going to be one pissed off group of players, and they have some of the most talented players in the league, especially Austin Matthews. How will the Stars defend them? How will the Stars look to generate offense on their own? We'll talk about all of that on tomorrow's episode, so be sure to tune in. Thank you again for making us your first listen of the day. Hit that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. Help us reach those 1,000 subscribers by the end of 2022. You can also find and follow us on your favorite podcasting platform. Remember, we are free and available no matter where or how you choose to listen. And you can follow us on social media at Locked On Stars on Instagram and Twitter, as well as my personal Twitter account at Dane_Lewis. Thank you guys so much again for tuning in. Thank you to Matt for joining the show. Hope you guys have a great Wednesday, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.